Thank you. Mr. Wagner, I wanted to focus on the Miami thing, as Senator Nelson previewed, because it's a real mess, and I fly through that airport all the time. I hear from them constantly. It's the second, as you know, the second busiest port of entry for visitors to the United States. It's the only airport in the top 5 that's going to have double-digit growth this year. This year alone, it's going to get 1 million more visitors than it did a year ago, which I think should be good news for the goal that's outlined as the purpose of this hearing. Here's the mess. From January to March of this year, the average wait time has been 59 minutes, but the problem with that is that sometimes the wait times are as long as 190 minutes. It's been the documented longest wait time, which is the longest wait time in the U.S. I know we're going to brag about the fact that the wait times are down about 20%, which is good, but the problem with that, and I think you touched upon it earlier when you talked about the numbers yesterday, is that the average is basically the average of the entire day that flights are coming in. International flights come in waves, right? So you'll have a peak time of flights, and then you'll have a downtime of flights. And sometimes the wait is 0 because there's no international flights. And sometimes the wait time has been documented to be as long as 3 hours. So there's a problem with the way that's documented. The damage is incalculable. Number one, you have misconnections. And I know you've heard from the airlines, people are missing their connections. And the other is the word of mouth. Look, I have here just a collection of things people have put up on Twitter. Miami airport line is a nightmare. First world city, third world airport. Here's this travel advisor. Miami airport is a joke. I have stood in line for immigration for over an hour many, many times. We're now allow 3 hours from expected landing till departure of connecting flights. Here's another TripAdvisor comment. Warning to all continuing passengers clearing customs and immigration through Miami. It is a nightmare. If you can avoid this, try to do so. So this is really, really complicated and really problematic. And then I look at some of the models that are being used to make some decisions here. About 2,000 new officers have been approved. I know it's going to take about 18 months to 2 years to get most of them online, which is in and of itself a very long wait given the damage that's already happening. It is what it is. But the model doesn't make a lot of sense to me. For example, Newark, which is not even on the chart of major delays, they got 100 new agents, and Miami only got 60. So the second busiest international airport in America got 3% of the new agents. Can you just explain to me, first of all, what was the model that led to that determination?
Correct. So the workload staffing model takes all of the activities a CBP officer does at a port of entry. It takes the average time to do each one of those activities and multiplies by how many times a day it's done. It comes up with the amount of hours needed to run a port of entry, divides by the available work hours of an officer, and comes up with the staffing number of what we think is the right number to run that port of entry. It's not optimal staffing. It would be the minimum needed to require to address that workload. There's factors then that you can lay on top of that as filters, such as all that work arrives at one point in time, and they overload the capacity of the entire system. There's other factors that, we would look at that for remote ports or splitting terminals or splitting the work up. So that, there's several factors that can influence that. So in the case of Miami, we provided, we allocated about between 80 to 100 officers the previous year to Miami Airport in anticipation of the North Terminal opening. The other airports in the country didn't get that. JFK is going to receive the largest number of officers out of the 2,000 because JetBlue is opening a new terminal this fall, and we need to staff that up. So, Miami got a large influx of CBP officers to accommodate that growth. We agree it's not it's not enough. We received, we're grateful for the 2,000 that Congress gave us, but it was about 60% of what we needed, and really about 2 years after we.
So the reason is, so what I go back and tell the Miami Airport is the reason why you're only getting 60 is because you got 80 the year before?
Correct. So the workload staffing model tried to balance out, the need, and we tried to spread that out evenly and make places on a similar status with the major gateway airports, LAX, JFK. The officers would have to come from somewhere. So we take them from an LAX, a JFK, a Las Vegas, El Paso, Detroit, Michigan, and move them to Miami. We try to use the workload staffing model to balance that out to keep us on record to see how far from the gaps that each place.
Because I don't want to run out of time. The second question that I'm interested to see what their response will be to that. But the second question that I have, it has to do with the staffing models once they're in place, how you allocate resources based on peak times. And you talked earlier about how there's close coordination with the airport and the airlines on when to surge up the number of agents versus when not to. Miami Airport has told us, however, that you will not share the staffing model. Is the staffing model something that you don't share with the airlines and the airport? According to them, they don't know what the staffing model is for how you surge personnel.
No, we'll share that with them, and I think we meet twice a day with the airlines and the airport operators to plan out the day's events. So we look at the manifest that we receive in advance from the airlines. We do some calculations that it takes about 1 minute to process a U.S. citizen, about 2.5 minutes for a non-U.S. citizen because of the fingerprint requirements. We model out what the projected wait times are going to be and what the projected primary booth count should be, and then we lay our staffing over that to see how many booths can we afford to open and how much overtime we use to close those gaps and fill in the slots behind that.
So you do share the staffing models with the airport?
We share that information with the airports.
But what about the model to determine when to surge personnel? Not the actual determination you come up with, but how you came up with it. Are they aware of what you use to determine how much personnel to?
They should be, and if not, we will certainly share that information with them, how we come about the workload staffing model numbers, the activities that we count. It's about 170 different activities we counted to come up with the workload for the ports of entry, and we can share the average processing times of each one of those activities. There's nothing, say, secretive or controversial or classified behind that kind of information.
Well, that's completely contrary to what the airport has told me, so we got to figure this out.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk to them about it.
I have one more question, but I'll wait. If there's going to be a second round, or we got votes?
We have a vote at 11:45. Senator Klobuchar.
If he wants to ask one more question.
Go ahead, Senator
It has
Rubio.
to do with the kiosks. You've had this program now where airports can pay to put the kiosks in. Miami has. I think they put in like 75 new kiosks. Here's the problem that they're having that I hope we can address. And this should be easy to address. The problem they have is that their wait times, those kiosks as they're currently configured, only work for U.S. citizens that are returning. As they're currently configured now in Miami, they don't work for the international passenger yet, which is where their wait times are coming from. What they need is a software upgrade on those kiosks so that they'll work for international travelers. Can you work with us, or can you pledge with us we're going to get that software in there so that these kiosks that they've paid for will actually work for the cause of their waits?
They work today for U.S. citizens, U.S. permanent residents, and visa waiver travelers.
Okay.
What we have to add is the B1, B2 visa holders and people from visa countries.
That's a software upgrade, basically.
That's a software upgrade and the programming to be able to do that and then the testing with them. We have not started working on that yet, but that is on. We just deployed for the lawful permanent residents. We did the VWP travelers a few months ago. Miami does about 35% of their total arrivals through those kiosks, but 100% agree we need to expand it to the B1, B2 visa holders.
So what's the time frame on that?
We have not sketched out what the requirements would be or what the timeline of that would be, but that's where we are going to focus on within the coming weeks. We'll have a better projection of what that timeline should be.
Well, the sooner the better, because they've got a
Absolutely.
mess on their hands over there. I mean, I really worry about permanent damage being done to that port of entry. There's some Orlando issues, but we're out of time, and we'll talk about, I'll send you a letter on those as well.